the interview? Could we then call people, find out what, could we get into this phase of inquiry to answer the question under Article 186, or is it simply a question of law without an inquiry?
My Lord, it is a question of law that if it comes to light that a particular judgment was a result of considerations other than the due process of law, then that judgment by itself becomes questionable.
But this factum that it was otherwise requires inquiry. We can't just simply look at a video and say this happened. What about the other judges? There are a number of judges on the thing. So, I mean, what I would legally understand is that when we start addressing a question under 186, is it just a legal question, or this might, as in this case, entail looking at evidence and then also the veracity of that evidence, the interpretation of that evidence? Are we going to entail that, get into that exercise also?
My Lord, the immediate response will be based on two judgments.
I want to add one more thing. Can you point out any specific question that is being posed to us in the reference that is to be answered? Specific question for the Supreme Court.
My Lord, this Honorable Court itself has posed...
No, in reference. In reference.
My Lord, the reference is before your Lordship.
Then we should be confined to that question.
My Lord, no, your Lordship has now framed questions, but if your Lordship is looking at the reference on pages 16 to 18, the questions were framed at that time. But may I read those in a minute? They are here. But in order to answer my Lord Mr. Sayyid Mansoor Ali Shah's question, my Lord, this arose in the context of an appeal before this Honorable Court, so the issue was open at that time, and it arose in a context where the proceedings had finally concluding in the House of Lords, as it then was called, in the United Kingdom. In the Pinochet case, the House of Lords, again by a narrow majority, had come to the conclusion that Mr. Pinochet needs to be extradited. An issue arose, and your Lordship knows that ordinarily the House of Lords never reviews its judgments. Once they have given a judgment that's final, concluded, and the proceedings were over. But an application was made that Mr. Justice Hoffman, who was one of the members of the majority, his wife was part of the Amnesty International, and Amnesty International had submitted an amicus brief.
That was a review, was it?
My Lord, but your Lordship knows that unlike in our case in the Constitution of Pakistan.
इससे पहले बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी और लतीफ को